All right, here we go. I will call the Richland County Executive Finance Standing Committee to order. Roll call, please.
Carroll.
English.
Here.
Renish. Manning.
Here.
Gill.
Here.
Glassburner.
Here.
Turk. Frank.
Yes.
Williamson.
Here.
Cooey.
Here.
You have 7 of 9 present. Go.
We are verified of open meeting law compliance.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the meeting's been properly noticed.
Agenda, the latest agenda should be a 22 point. That is the latest. Looking for approval of the agenda, but we will have some amendments if you're okay with that. I don't know if you want to write these down because we've got some changes.
Okay.
We're going to move 7 to 14. This is coming from my help from Mr. Mike Wendell. Move 12 and 15 to number 9. Move number 11 to 19. And add an S to employees in number 16.
Bingo.
7 to 14, 12 and 15 to number 9, 11 to 19, and add an S to number 16 on employees. Got that? If not, somebody will help us. Go for it. Motion by Mr. Frank, seconded by Mr. Manning. All those in favor of approving the agenda with the amendments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
And now we got it. There's Mr. Burke. All right, welcome, Dave. All right. We are going to minutes, number 5, from June 25th and July 9th. 2 sets of minutes. Anybody have any issues with either set? Nothing from anybody. I will approve them as presented. Public comment, number 6, public comment. Anybody? There we go.
Would it be possible to defer public comment until after the administrator gives a report, please? I'd rather not speak out of turn.
When, oh, you're doing your report next?
Yeah.
Sure. That work for you?
We moved your report.
Oh, you moved my report?
Down to
Okay.
14.
Yeah, 6 went to,
I'm patient, so that's,
yeah, we can move it till after the administrator's report. All right,
thank you, Mr. Chair.
you're welcome. I guess we'll start with numbers. Now what do we do? 7 to 14, so we're going to number 8. Mine is right. Number 8 is discussion, update on the county comprehensive planning process and discussion of county data for inclusion in the plan. And that is Troy?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Everybody know where we're at? Go ahead, Troy.
Yeah, thank you for time on your agenda. We'll push it be to the point that you got a full agenda. I'm Troy Hagan, I'm the Executive Director for the Southwestern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, working to update your comprehensive plan between now and the end of the year. With a couple of my colleagues, Jake Nelson is our research analyst, our data guru, Jacqueline Ascendo is our GIS coordinator, and Dan Houck is actually going to be the project lead, so he's going to talk here mostly, but this is the primary committee which we'll be working with through the approval process, so we wanted to take a few minutes, and you have, I believe in your packet, that you saw a couple months back, the scope of work for the comprehensive plan. It's designed to meet statute and do all the things it must do, but highly focused on a couple of aspects that came about during the scoping process. A lot of what we'll do is summary of existing plans. You have direct plans, you have farmers preservation plans, you have land and water plans. We don't need to recreate the wheel, and we don't get paid by the page. So we're going to really summarize at high level that stuff and incorporate it. The community engagement Dan is going to speak about briefly, and Jacob and Jacqueline on the data. The element that's in here as well that we can support in any way that you deem necessary is economic development. I think when we put the scope of work together some time back, the city and the county were still in partnership. So if there's a desire to kind of explore economic development or the county's role in that, we could have some conversations. We will be speaking with cities, villages, and townships about economic development to some degree, which brings me really to the bulk of the scope of work is to help the county think about its relationships with cities, villages, and townships. How can we figure out the workforce shortage and the cost-saving opportunities that might exist through some conversation. On our part, we'll be educating them to some degree, on the demographics and economics we face. Some of the townships may be less familiar. But at the high level, you'll see there's really 4 big tasks: the summary of plans, the data analysis, community engagement, and then of course the plan writing. So I'd like maybe Dan to give them a high-level overview of the public engagement so that they're aware of this.
Yeah, thanks, Troy. So yeah, one of the key components of this plan will be community engagement, and that will be taking the form of engaging with each of the local units of government in the county. So we've got a series of meetings planned, and got a schedule included in your packet, a meeting with Richland Center in Richland County, a meeting with all of the villages in the county, and then 2 meetings with the Richland Towns Association. And so those meetings will focus on intergovernmental cooperation, economic development, and importantly with the township's land use and thinking about future land use. We're also attending the Richland Towns Association quarterly meeting at the end of the month here on the 28th. And so this is an exciting opportunity to get everyone involved in this process, and to get all especially the townships who haven't thought about their comprehensive plans in almost 20 years, getting them together. We've also been engaging with the Richland Resiliency Group, especially with their water quality and land use groups. One of the documents that I've included in your packet is the public participation plan, which we have finalized, and we're looking to have that adopted by the county board in September. So I'm going to be putting a few agenda items on this committee's agenda for next month, kind of formally establishing itself as the Plan Commission for purposes of reviewing and approving this plan, or recommending approval for the plan, I should say, and that would go into effect once it gets to county board, and then also recommending the public participation plan for approval by the county board. And so yeah, just there is the comprehensive plan timeline, looking for plan adoption by the end of the calendar year here. So that's kind of the big picture as far as engagement goes. Turn to data.
Yeah, so just at the top of the page there, I think I laid out a few of the recommended data we might be including in the plan. This is just recommendations. As we go through the public engagement more, these are subject to change as we go through and hear more feedback from what we think is really important for our plan. And then if you want to go down to the green highlighted section, we really, for this plan, we're going to streamline the data a lot more with more of a focus on the goals, objectives, and policy recommendations. So we went through and we highlighted what we found was most important from the previous plan that we really want to make sure is included in the new plan.
May I borrow that too?
Of course, yeah.
So this document here is the one that Jacob's referencing. And correct me, Supervisor Glassbrain, when we scoped this, and I'm going to interject briefly, one of the strong aspects of the old plan was the data. In those days, we took a kitchen sink approach. Not every data point in there is actionable. So what we're proposing through that highlight there and the other document is to just really update the data we think the county might find most actionable. And that's where we'll really look for your input on as well. Is there something out there you'd like to see or have input on that we can support you with?
Thank you for that context, Troy. And then, so I've also handed out a data packet, giving just a brief summary of some of the data it's going to look like for the plan. And there's a lot more than we might be including in the future. So, with that, I think I'll hand it over to Jacqueline to talk about maps.
Troy's statement about what data on maps are actionable will be also transferred to the maps. We will not be remaking all the maps in the old plans. We'll just be doing the ones that are more applicable. We're also planning to include an ATV UTV route map, as well as from the meetings that will have existing and future land use maps from each of the townships, which would be made into the Richland County map.
The map that is probably most important from a policy standpoint will be the future land use plan. So according to statute, any land use regulation, i.e. zoning, undertaken by the county must be consistent with this plan. So there's two ways to look at that. One is if you have a stated goal, you can't go outright against that. We don't generally see that to be an issue. But the future land use plan does look across the county at zoned townships, 12 of your 16, on a parcel by parcel basis. With counties that have farmland preservation such as yours, farmland preservation most often trumps some of the future land use. And I think of the 12 of the 16 counties, probably 90% is in farmland preservation. But that is one of the detailed tasks we'll be working on with the townships is plotting out maps of the township and saying, okay, if and when you're going to grow, what does that look like? And that map will be compiled into a county map for inclusion in this. And then that's part of the public hearing process and public comments.
So as Troy stated, I'll be the project lead on this comprehensive plan update. So if anybody would like my business card, I'd be happy to get in contact with you.
Can we just hand it out?
Yep.
Yeah. So what we would love to hear is there data you think would be actionable, valuable data and/or maps for the county. We know that you use MSA, so if there's a map that we can build in this process that you want transferred onto your platform, we're happy to work with them. I know some of that stuff is interactive, so Jacqueline's been in touch with them already. So we have a little wiggle room if there's kind of a neat or new map that you want on your platform, we're happy to work with them, put that up. So data and maps you think would be valuable, and then as Dan said, he'll work through Administrator Pesh or Clerk Kalish to get agenda items in September. One, and these are statutory. One is you adopt the public participation plan, which simply summarizes the outreach we talked about. And the other is identify this committee as the plan commission. You don't have to. Sometimes I've seen it be the zoning committee. Generally, these days, this is probably more actionable committee. We'll do it. One of the board ones. So those would be the two action items on your September agenda. And then Dan, somewhere around November, December, Dan will be in touch about the 30-day public comment period and some of those public hearing pieces. The other thing I guess I'd look for is what would you like to see in between now and then? We can summarize notes and minutes from county and township, from our public outreach and just provide them for distribution. If you want to stay kind of abreast of the information, we can sort of give you a memo format so you can read along. We don't necessarily need to be here to present or share. If you'd like that, we can put together a 1 to 2 page memo for distribution in these feedback. It's very helpful.
Definitely.
And I do plan on attending all of those meetings as well. So I will be able to, distribute the minutes and then also provide a brief summary and answer any questions that you may have because I will be in attendance.
We'd love to have county supervisors there
Yeah.
to cover these areas.
Absolutely.
You're certainly welcome. So, fantastic.
And those dates right there.
Yeah, I think we're finalizing the venues, but those are confirmed dates.
Okay, so you got,
There's one date that somehow this is an old version that got in there. So actually, the first date that says August 21st, it's actually the 23rd. So that's the Richland Center, Richland County meeting.
documents that.
And you said you don't have a place yet for that?
Well, we must for that one.
Yeah, each of them will be in this room.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
All 4 of those meetings will be here.
And I can forward, if it's fine, I can forward out those meeting
Times,
invites
yep.
to
Yep.
this committee or to
Correct.
the entire board,
Correct.
actually.
Entire
Depending on the wishes of the committee, if you want me to send them out to the entire board, I can do that.
That's a good idea, so we can.
Okay.
Is there still, because this is online somewhere, right, the old plan? Because there are people that I don't know that even know what it is, so I don't know if we could provide a link to the, for example, other county board members that have no idea what we're, new members that don't know what we're doing.
Sure.
I know that it's somewhere. It's
Yeah, and
obviously
one of
a
the
huge
questions I had
document.
for Troy was, is there something new that we're gonna add, you're gonna add, from our old plan?
Well, we're gonna get rid of a lot of the old stuff.
Okay.
A lot of it's dated and it's just a
Yeah.
lot of paper. We really
So
want
make
to.
it smaller?
Yes, ma'am. We really want to focus on the intergovernmental coordination piece. Because Kathy Cooper does planning for land conservation and you know, you have these different departments. We've wrapped up a series of housing studies we shared at your last county board meeting. We don't need to spend time where we already have some stuff in place. For my work across 5 counties and 40-some communities, there's profound opportunity in working across these interjurisdictional lines. And that's really where we'd like to spend some time. And that's how we structured these, right? So Richland County, Richland Center, that's a specific meeting, it makes sense. They're located here, they're kind of the big animal in the county. But all the other villages matter as well. I want to, since she's here, pick on Jean Nix, has been amazing helping us coordinate all the town meetings. She's phenomenal. So Boaz, Cads, Viola, Lone Rock will have a meeting with the county, and then all the townships, just to kind of break up the level of effort. But that's really our big focus from what we see across the counties. And we've not really spent enough time there, I don't think, to really explore what could happen. It kind of happens organically, right? Lone Rock can't hire law enforcement, so Sheriff Porter gets involved and contracts out. You know, it kind of happens organically, but how do we get ahead of some of that stuff? It'd be valuable.
My only other comment would be, how much data is in there? Because I don't remember the old one that well, but Mark's on the school board referendum today. How much stuff is in there that those of us that are on school boards, or that they might be able to pull out and help with anything?
That'll be new data. I don't know that we had a whole lot of school data. That's kind of one of my deep interests.
I mean, it's never any battle. Richland Center's gone through it. Every one of them in this county is going to go through it.
So we watch enrollment trends and also open enrollment trends, which is a whole other strategy and cause and set of issues.
What's the difference between an enrollment trend and an open enrollment trend?
Open enrollment informs overall enrollment. Right? So Jacob has done phenomenal work looking across 60-some school districts. There are some communities that grow through natural population growth, and some districts that only grow through open enrollment.
I mean, students can go from.
Okay, I get it, they're coming in.
And at the school district level, there's a lot of strategy there. Is it a cultural issue? Is it a perception issue? Is it, you know, why do kids open enroll? And how do we sort that out? But yes, sir, we'll have that in there. Yep.
That'd be good. Go ahead.
So just to clarify then, I think what you're saying is before the next meeting, because you mentioned to look and see if there were other maps that we wanted, but also data, so that document that has the table of contents that has highlighted, that's what you're currently looking at. But if we had something we thought that you should pull out from there.
Yes, so it
is
is.
that correct?
Yes, ma'am. It's
Okay.
the green highlight is what we're
Right.
proposing. There's
This is
things.
the old table of contents,
Yes,
by the way.
and there are things that are not in here. Can I have that orange sheet, please? The stuff that is not in here that we want to include is on the top of this.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct, right? Yes. So for instance, the ATV, there's probably, school enrollment doesn't show up, but that'll absolutely be on here. Yeah. We've got better data, Department of Revenue, house sale data is a lot better than census data, right? So to be a data, we won't drag in the data geek stuff. But we're looking to not only provide better data, but higher quality stuff.
Supervisor Carroll first.
Just wonder if I could ask you to consider adding one more item to the pare down scope items. The current comprehensive plan, one weak point is measuring progress. We haven't done it. And I know it's not marked here right now, but I wondered if that would be a tough thing to add.
No, I mean measuring performance is huge. I think yes. And maybe we had that conversation here, or we propose something to you. I don't know what recommendations will come out of it. Yeah, the answer is yes. I'd like to see what recommendations come out and figure out how we measure them.
Supervisor Frank, question?
Yeah, so I guess I'd be curious if you had the ability to pull data for the vacationers, the people that are coming here that are staying at alternate housing, whether it's Airbnbs or housing groups. I think there's more than that, and I think that's I think it's an item that could be improved for community and for people staying. And I'm real curious if that data is available.
We have previously pulled data for things like vacation homes, using actual data to see who is living here full-time and who's living here part-time. For Airbnb data, from what we found, a lot of it's very small in areas like this. There's not a ton of it happening from what we've seen in the past. Maybe like 1 or 2 in a county. Not a county, sorry, a township. And the data we get is not very detailed. It's a lot of it's behind huge paywalls.
There's a site called AirDNA,
Okay.
which does track Airbnbs for VRBOs or whatever.
Whatever the rental process is.
Yes, sir. And so we've snapshot some of that in our housing study.
I'll be curious, I mean, obviously it's,
Do you mind if I ask, where do you track that info from? Is it from DATCAP? Is it from just the Airbnb website?
Yeah, so AirDNA aggregates that data from these various Airbnb and VRBO sites.
Just those sites though, not,
Yeah, I mean, if you're leasing something in the newspaper, they wouldn't pick that up. But there's two things, as Jacob was getting at. There's seasonal and recreational homes. We have really good census data on that, and you have a high proportion of that. Then there's the VRBO, Airbnb stuff, which is good and bad. I mean, it's property tax and it's tourism dollars, but nobody lives in an Airbnb to send their kid to school at Richland, right? So it takes a house off the market for a permanent resident who could be volunteering in the fire department or sending kids to school, and so we have sort of a lovely relationship with them. I stay at them all the time, but I think from a community standpoint,
there's pros and cons.
yes, we'll certainly put the data in that we have.
It'd be interesting to see what, just to see what those numbers are, if people are coming in that way and staying that way. I don't know, tax data from that, because that would all be room taxed back to the agencies. I don't know, okay.
Supervisor Gill has a question, and I think we're going to keep moving.
Okay, so we got two questions. Can we track data hints on points of interest in Richland County? I've heard people pitch in numbers and say, here's where people are looking to go or find out or whatever. Is that something that you guys have access to? Or
Through our colleagues, there's a software called Placer.ai, which tracks cell phone data, which of course you can buy. We don't buy that software, but Mississippi River Regional Planning out across does. And we've talked to them about sharing some of that data, so we'd like to find a good way to pilot it. That'd be interesting to see, because it'll track who's coming there.
And then secondly, how do we publicize these meetings? The ones that are coming up in all these townships and whatever. How do we let people know that they're invited?
Yeah.
So we had discussed that these meetings are for officials of the villages and the towns, in addition to Richland Center, Richland County.
They're public meetings. We have, prior to now, done heavy public engagement in comp planning in Bullitt and Lone Rock and Richland Center. And so because we want these to be real tactical meetings, intergovernmental coordination, it wasn't envisioned as broad public input, which...
Broad public invite.
Correct, ma'am. I think we talked a little bit about that during the scoping. So they're absolutely open to anybody. But we want to get into the weeds as opposed to kind of having a general conversation about where the county's going.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Good, good. Any further questions of Mr. Rennie? Welcome. Didn't even see you come in. All right, if not, we're going to move to number 9, which also includes 12 and 15. Starting with number 9. Resolution recognizing the retirement of Health and Human Services employees. Is that you, Mr. Haley?
The resolution is included in your packet.
All right.
Agenda item number 1. It's on the screen.
What?
I believe this time it's here.
That's what you had wrote on mine, 12 and 15 to 9.
Yeah.
So we're moving.
So we just did what was.
We just did 8. You're going to do 9, 12, and 15?
Just 12 and 15.
All right, okay, so 12 and 15. Skip number 9. 12 and 15, down to discussion and possible action leasing of a new vehicle for the ambulance service. Number 12 is where we're at.
Oh.
Yeah, that would have been good.
The lease just arrived to me about 2 minutes ago. I can try to save it, put it on your packet. So sorry, but.
So that's,
I'm
I'm sorry for the delay on the lease information in the packet. We initially had a prior lease option for the vehicle, but we've been made aware of the possible substantial donation towards the vehicle. So this lease is going to reflect just the cost of the vehicle, not all of the equipment it requires. If I've learned anything in the last 4.5 hours is how important this vehicle is going to be to EMS and emergency management. So as it stands right now, so the vehicle we have for emergency management is a 2004 F-250. It was purchased in 2003 via a anti-terrorism grant at the time. We were supposed to address that vehicle in public safety last Friday, but unfortunately I did have to leave the meeting a little bit early. But that vehicle has met its end of life and is no longer safely usable. For EMS, we have not purchased a new administrative vehicle for EMS slash fly car, intercept vehicle, whatever phraseology you want to use for that, chief's vehicle. We have not purchased a new one of those. I can't find records of us ever purchasing a new one of those. Traditionally, we have used surplus vehicles from the sheriff's office. The two surplus vehicles ago that we got, one was a 2015 Ford Explorer. Very high mileage vehicle. It was valued about $2,000. It was going to cost about $3,000 to make it a usable, safe emergency vehicle. That certainly did not meet the full needs of a dual-purpose vehicle. So that didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Right now, I've got a 2016 Chevy Caprice from the sheriff's office, which I'm very grateful for because I had nothing there for a few days. That's got 167,000 miles on it. We've already put $1,500 into it with bills kind of billing on there, anticipating brakes, rotors, and probably some brake lines and new rims coming soon because the rims are rusted all the way through. So what my proposal is for a shared leased vehicle. I know we're trying to eliminate short-term borrowing and we don't have quite enough capital up front just to put on this thing and get it done. So what this would be is a 2024 Chevrolet 1500 pickup truck. This should be a shared vehicle between EMS and emergency management, and the hope is to share the cost between both Fund 10 for emergency management as well as Fund 51 for EMS. So the lease payment would be split square down the middle between the two agencies. I do believe, and I can't say 100%, but I'm about 99% certain I will be anticipating a $20,000 to $30,000 donation for the full outfit for all the emergency vehicle equipment, the lights, the radios, the bed, the cap for the bed, the slide-out tray. It's going to carry a lot of the emergency management equipment, which again, I've realized the importance of being able to have on board. We were just dealing with a situation where we needed some items to prevent flowage of some liquids, and we're having to call back to the station and have other people grab it, bring it there. It'd be a lot nicer to have those things on hand when we need them in the home. Again, I did not, because we were dealing with all of this, I did not get the updated lease for the $50,000 total until I was just kind of walking in here. I can share you guys with the numbers. I understand it's not in your packet.
I did upload what he sent me. If you look at your packet, it's a JPEG file or something, so it should be in there. Underneath item 12, it's going to say GM Financial Richland JPEG. So you should see it in your committee packet folder. It's not going to show up on the screen, but it should be in your folder.
So the initial lease proposal we got was for $70,000, which would have included about a $20,000 outfit for the vehicle, which would have gotten about 80% of the stuff that, there's needs and wants, of course. But I want this thing to last us about 10 years and start a 10-year replacement plan with these, so we have a safe and reliable emergency vehicle for EMS and emergency management. But with the anticipated donation, the lease is for $51,000. It is a lease term of 5 years. We all know that interest rates right now are not amazing, and I fully embrace that. But over the 5 years, our monthly lease payment for the 5 years would be $1,013.22. So it'd make a lease payment of about $507 from EMS 151 and emergency management each month. I've also included in our budgets for next year shared vehicle costs for maintenance, for fuel costs, all that other ancillary stuff. I kind of split right down the middle between Fund 51 and Fund 10. Again, try and do as much as we can with as little as possible. And I think instead of replacing two vehicles, let's try and combine two into one and improve that through. Again, I've requested some leasing information from a few different dealerships, a few different vehicle manufacturers. The only one I got back was from GM Financial for the Chevrolet 1500. Ford was not able to get us back with a lease. Not sure why, but we got nothing back from them, and I started that conversation 2 months ago. So the only one I have back is from GM. Were you guys able to get that in your packets?
So you may have to refresh your folder. It's not working, okay, and I don't know if maybe because it's a PNG file, maybe it won't let you, I tried.
That's fine, thanks for trying.
Sorry.
So this is,
Go ahead, sir.
so this is a lease at about $1,100 a month,
Yeah, $1,000 a month, correct.
5 years.
Yep. At the end of that 5 years, we can then purchase the vehicle for $1.
Okay, so we're basically paying it off over time.
Correct.
Okay, all right, that was mine. Is there a mileage limitation?
There is no mileage limitations because this is under the government leasing.
Okay.
Any further questions for Mike? I know we don't have the information. Mike, is this something that, or Administrator Best, that we need to do today?
The hope was to do it today. I understand, given the circumstances, it might not necessarily be today. But it's a.
We got the basic, Mr. Cooley.
Well, my only question, doesn't this normally run through the JAC? Wouldn't it come through that because then townships and everything are involved in that?
So the Joint Ambulance Committee was apprised of this plan, and we got joint approval from the Joint Ambulance Committee to bring this forth to the Executive Finance for discussion.
Okay.
Brian?
In the sense that we considered a lease option, I don't know that we considered this specific lease option.
That's correct.
And the concept was approved to bring it to you folks to see if you would be willing to contribute towards the expense. So we asked him to bring it here, and in the interim, then there's this more, I'll say, more advantageous proposal than the one that we had sort of looked at. And so if the concept is one, the concept of splitting costs between departments is viable, then I think that would be something that the JAC might very well approve or recommend be approved.
Mr. Craig.
First of all, does your budget numbers look like they're covered for the year? And number two, what's the steps? Is county board approval because it's a contract for 5 years?
Well, so this is part of the discussion this evening, the interaction that goes on between the JAC, the county board. The waters have been muddied over the years, and we need direction on how the functionality should continue, because the original intent appears to be somewhat different from the way it's been functioning. So thus the question has been raised and we need guidance as far as that goes. So that is why this item probably should have waited until later on, but at any rate, it's
Well,
here.
the main point of this discussion is that, number one, leasing a vehicle is setting a new way of doing things in the county, so that's a big piece of the puzzle.
Yep.
Number two is the county's agreement to share the cost with Fund 51 from the emergency management side to do this. And from your budgetary question, do I have a line item that says I can afford this? No, but when I look at my vehicle maintenance costs for the previous Ford Explorer, the current Caprice, it's well funded.
And
It does make sense.
It's different line item, different
Correct.
stuff. Okay.
Repairs versus maintenance.
So I guess the action we're pursuing is that we would support to have the discussion that Fund 10 would contribute half to a shared vehicle instead of emergency management having their own and EMS having their
That's
own.
having their own.
And then at the meeting of the JAC that we're going to have later this month, armed with the knowledge that this is a concept, leasing is a concept that might very well be approved, that cost sharing is an idea that might very well be approved, then we would present that to the JAC and bring it all through as a plan. And the budget can be amended to show where that, that we're going to afford, we're able to afford that.
I thought it's been a long day and this is all a lot better put together before today.
Well, that's fine.
The general concepts.
It sounds like we're just gonna send it back. I mean, I don't know if we need to take action on that, discussion and possible action, leasing a new vehicle. I would say we send it back, go through the proper channels and bring it back. Mr. Manning?
Did you say you're expecting a sizable donation for this?
Yes, sir.
What would happen if we just don't get it as far as budget?
So I would not move forward with the leasing plan. If that donation were not to come in, I'll have a final answer on that donation by the end of this month.
So we really don't need to be taking action.
Right, that's why we're gonna send it back, and by then you'll have an answer.
But this discussion needed to happen.
No,
Because we needed
just
to know if this was something that the committee would support in order to, bring it full circle. Because there was no point in having the discussion at the committee level if the board wasn't gonna support this type of action.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Well, I think the board's only part is about the emergency management side. I mean, the
Correct.
JAC is the other, that's
Correct.
not our, so I guess what Brian's looking for is if we're gonna support.
Right.
So that's the question to us.
Yes.
And I don't have any problem supporting it. I mean, I just make sure that everybody's, I mean, like you said, this is different. And that JAC was created, I was on the first part of that when I was on the township, so.
I didn't want to dot all the i's, cross all the t's, get everything finalized, pre-donations all squared up if it wasn't going to get past executive finance or public safety committee, but just knowing that there's support within the committee for it to go to county board at the time, when that time comes, is what I'm looking for.
I think the general consensus, we're all in favor of, especially if that donation comes. Mr. Turk, you staying awake?
Can't hear you.
Any thoughts, comments?
I think the concept sounds good. Let's see if we can make it happen.
Thank you very much.
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Start it back that way. 15, discussion, original intent of, we already covered that? No. You ready to go into that? Original number 15?
Yep.
Yes. Original intent of the Joint Ambulance Committee and current functionality of committee.
Brian, you want to join us for this part of the discussion?
Certainly. Should I?
Yeah, you bet,
Yeah,
please.
okay.
Take the hot seat.
And Mike probably as well, you want to join us here at the?
Sure.
So, we had something brought to light, inadvertently really, through some questions about the hiring process when Mike was hired. And thankfully, when the questions were brought, Attorney Wendell happened to be in the office, which was wonderful. We had a member of the public that was inquiring on the process, how it happened, why it happened, a number of other things. And so I was able to answer questions, Attorney Wendell was able to answer questions, offer statutory reference, et cetera, et cetera. It was then brought up at the committee level. Again, how was the process done? Why does the authority lie with the county to hire the emergency manager? When did that change? And all of this happened with the change to the county administrator form of government. The committee is no longer in control of the hiring practice. There was committee involvement in the hiring practice. There were 2 members of the committee that sat in on the interview panel, all of these things. But that did prompt me to say, okay, let's go back and look at how did this committee start? Was this the original intent of the committee? Are we missing something? Did something get lost in translation somewhere? Are we not doing something that was originally intended at the start of this committee? So Kurt Kalish and I pulled out old resolution books and went digging and looked for any notes, anything we could find about when the JAC was created. And we couldn't find a whole lot of notes or anything, but what we did find was this resolution, which was resolution 14149 in 2015. And it talks about that, as you can read, but I'll read it. The county ambulance service currently provides ambulance service to 13 towns, 2 villages in the city of Richland Center. And much study and many meetings have taken place with these municipal units as to how the county will provide ambulance service in the future. And whereas the Rules and Resolutions Committee is now presenting a resolution to the county board providing for significant interim changes in the way that the county will provide 911 advanced emergency medical technician level service for 2015 with the anticipation that permanent changes will be accomplished by the end of 2015. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that there is created a 19-member joint ambulance committee whose members shall consist of the following, and then it outlines who should be on the committee. Be it further resolved that the county board shall approve the appointment of all members to the Joint Ambulance Committee after receiving nominations from each participating municipal unit, and members of the committee shall be paid the same mileage and per diem paid to county board supervisors for attendance at committee meetings. And so that is the piece that kind of we went, whoa, we're not doing that. The rest of it, I think, is still functioning very much the same. But we have not historically been having the county board approve all of the members to the JAC. Now, I don't know when that fell off. I have no idea when that stopped happening. But there was also, and Brian and Michael, maybe the two of you could explain a little bit more of what the concern was, but there is a feeling amongst the membership, and correct me if I'm misspeaking here, that those that are paying their membership fee feel as though they should have more of a say in day-to-day operations because they feel as though they are funding the ambulance service. And so I do think that there is maybe a misunderstanding of the level at which those contributions actually fund the operations of the service and how much county contribution actually is made, because it's not reflected in the budget per se, but the support that is given at the county level in, payroll and all of the ancillary services that are not actually spelled out in paper and a check isn't written. There are a substantial amount of those services that are kind of given in support of the ambulance service. And so when a decision was made to make it a county committee, it then falls under, in my understanding and in discussing with Attorney Windle, it falls under the rules then as such of a county board committee and of the county board. And so, in light of these discussions, I think it's really important then to determine what is the intent of the board, what was the intent of the board at this time, and what do you want the intent to be going forward? Because there are two options here. It remains a county committee and follows the rules, regulations, and such as set forth, as any other county committee would. Or, there's a standalone option, but I don't see how that would function or how it would be financially viable. And so we need clarity for Brian, we need clarity for Mike, we need clarity for the membership of that committee on what the board's wishes really are, and for all of us who are trying to navigate this, this intent. So that is why it is here before you. So Brian, what do you have to add?
I'll just say the issue or the concern was brought up in connection with the hiring of the emergency services director. And the concern was members of the JAC that their involvement was not greater than what was had. I served on the hiring committee, Mr. Severson did, so there were representatives there. There would have been one more had the board member, the county board member that was on the hiring committee, she went off the board. So her involvement was little. But there would have been three had that not occurred. And I think the folks that were on the JAC that were concerned or are concerned about the level of involvement was that this Mike was hired without being brought before the JAC and introduced and the JAC vote in some fashion or have some input into that hiring process, which you could say they did have input, but then the question would be, was that sufficient for some folks? And the answer was, I guess not. But That's the first time that a director's been ever been hired by the county for the ambulance service.
Since
And
your
so-
inception.
Since the beginning.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to fall back on and say, well, gee, we did this before like this, it's okay. We did it the way that it seemed to need to be done, and modifications were made by administration to allow to have input from members of the JAC.
What does the, I'm not to be too flippant, what does the JAC do? What are the decisions they make? What's the authority they have in the decisions they make? Are they setting prices for the ambulance? Are they setting rates that the townships have to pay? What are they?
We do those things, yes.
Okay.
Supervise the operation of the county ambulance service according to this.
We meet regularly and hear all manner of issues and things involving the operation of that. Before the county hired administrator, we were involved in hiring all levels of employees within that organization.
So what's the document that you?
This is right there.
Oh, up there.
So can I?
Supervisor Black.
I mean, if we're saying, and you mentioned, like, if we're considering this a county board, how did you put that? Maybe?
Subcommittee of the county board.
Subcommittee, then I would say it would function similarly to how the other committees are functioning, which I can use the committee I'm on as an example. Since having an administrator with the HHS board, we were not directly involved in hiring the new HHS director. I was invited to sit in on a final interview. However, even if I had voted no, I don't know that that would have, that it wasn't my decision to make. I was invited to give input, but that was the extent of our committee's involvement in it. So I guess I'm not following why this would be different.
And that's what I explained. It has been explained, and Michael has explained that as well. But there are those that seem to feel differently, and you're right, Commissioner Supervisor Cooey, it does say that here, but remember, when the county administrator form of government was set, a resolution was passed, and I believe it supersedes all prior, and so that is where then, and I know someone tried to say that, well, it says in the board rules, we do this, and I said, well, number one, we've got new board rules, so that no longer applies, but.
Board rules don't supersede statutes.
And that's where Mike pointed out statute, and so again, it was a discussion and trying to educate really on roles and responsibilities.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Reddish. So I think what you're seeing on the JEC is the same thing they saw on the county board 2 years ago when I came on. There were a lot of complaints about older board members about the way things were going. And John Okamer brought that sheet of paper in and explained the duties of the administrator. And so this is the path we've chosen, and there's no polite way of saying it. Sounds to me like everything was done the way it's supposed to be done. It's just not the way we used to do it.
May I?
Yes.
Okay. I agree. There is some of that.
Yeah.
A distinguishing characteristic is the input of money directly from the participating municipalities to the tune of, help me, I'm bad with numbers, 130,000 a year, rough number, So the money coming in from the participating municipalities is a point that is not trivial in terms of, okay, we're helping fund this, shouldn't we have some say? And they do have say. But this hiring process brought this question up in perhaps more starker contrast.
And I think, to that point, and I will not minimize the contribution, and we want the involvement, we want the input. I think that's very, very important because these are the residents that are served by the JAC. But if you look at that budget, and how large that budget is, it's well over $1 million. And so there are other things at play. And so, I mean, it's not, again, the decision was made at the time with negotiation with many, many people at the table that were deciding that this was a county-run committee. And so at this point, I think if there are those people that really do not want to be under the rules as written by the county board, then that's another discussion.
And you and I have talked about this on other occasions, and I think you know that I understand that we operate within a rubric of the county. And I do not want to minimize the benefits ancillary that the JAC receives, and I also don't lose sight of the fact that the taxpayers are ultimately paying for this, and the taxpayers benefit by having the JAC method of organization and the ability not to have to duplicate expenses, yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so that really was why I felt this discussion was important to have, to get guidance, to get input, to have it on the record as far as how you all felt, if you felt that there needed to be changes made, if you were concerned at all in any way, shape, or form with the way that the operations are occurring, if you wanted to see any sort of modification, or if you interpreted this document any differently than what we are interpreting it.
Supervisor Frank.
So are there any other committees, organizations in the county that receive money from townships or other entities that we then don't have any real say in what we do with that money? You know what I'm trying to say? So that you guys, the ambulance is receiving money from the townships, it's going into a county pot? It's coming to the county?
151, I think.
No, they have a designated fund, it only goes to them.
Okay, so that goes right to them. Do we have any other committee or group in the county where anything like that even resembling happens other than the fire department, which we don't have any control over because they're under the same type of thing where they receive money from the townships?
Yeah, that's not tied to the county. Fire departments are on the district.
That's what I'm trying to
Just to
say.
clarify, can you explain again, since I'm not familiar with that committee, how is it then tied to the county? Because you mentioned emergency management is a part of that, which we do fund, correct? But joint ambulance.
It's two separate entities.
This is a shared position, so it's part funded by the JAC, it's part funded by emergency management.
Okay.
This is a joint position at this time, so it's half and half. So the JAC pays for part, or 60, yeah, and then part is done by emergency management.
But I think
But what I'm saying is they have their own special fund. Do we contribute, you mentioned that we upfront it, but then it's recovered in costs. Is that
Right.
correct?
That's my understanding. Do they have a budget of money that comes from the county? Other than, so they have emergency management budget, they get money from the county for that, for emergency management.
Right.
Is there any funding that goes to them for the ambulance? At the beginning of the year, they've got to have money to.
No.
Okay, that's all completely, okay.
No, that's through.
Not operational, but there would be capital, correct?
Right.
I mean,
Oh,
so
so we
then
do
in
have
that
capital
context, I
expenses.
understand that
It's
that is
operating.
different.
No, I think they take care of capital now.
Well, we want to be careful. We did enjoy support from the county board to provide loan proceeds, borrowing proceeds to acquire the facility that we are in now. So thank you.
And it's working.
And I would say that looking forward and with the planning and some of the potential future changes, that may change, depending on what the board's wishes are and some of the potential, ambulance services are not growing. They are getting smaller, they are getting harder to maintain. County, small towns and villages can't afford often to do this. The push is really for more regional services, and we're kind of ahead of the game in that realm. And so, you hear people often talk about what's mandated and what's not mandated and all of those arguments. This is a service that, sure, it's not mandated, but if we don't have this, people die. So I would argue it is an essential service. It is something that has to be provided. And I don't know that we can just say, oh, well, maybe they're not bringing in enough revenue to sustain, but the county doesn't really need to help. I mean, that's the way I look at this service. And so that's another reason why I do think that at the end of the day, at some point, yes, it may fall on the county to make a decision that we do need to spend some taxpayer dollars to sustain the service. Again, not my decision, that's a board decision. But that decision may have to come at some point.
Mr. Turk?
Yes, if you look at that original resolution that we're referring to, it talked about organizing the JAC as an interim until a more permanent arrangement could be established. Well, 9 years later, we're still interim. We haven't established a permanent solution. I know there was talk at the time about moving to an ambulance district or something like that. It didn't happen. So it appears that our current model is one that we're going to be into for some time. And as Candace was saying, this is not something we're going to stop doing. This is an incredibly important endeavor to keep going. So I would think that we need to look at the relationship between JAC and the county and figure out what it's going to look like now and moving forward. We don't seem to have real clear guidance on what that relationship was supposed to look like, what decision-making processes were going to be from the historical stuff we have. So I think we need to sit down and we need to come up with, okay, this is what we agree on now moving forward.
Thank you, Dave, very good. Mrs. Glassbrenner?
So, just to clarify then, what specifically are we trying to address tonight?
Right.
Just the hiring process, or are we looking at the entire, or nothing?
No, go ahead.
Well, number one, we have not been approving all of the appointments to that committee. So if we are going to continue on, we should probably follow our own resolution and say that we are going to approve the appointments to the committee.
Who has been?
Well, it has in the past, at the slate, when we reconstitute every 2 years and, following how you guys do, we present our list, and that list historically, to my best of my knowledge, went to the board. Board said yes. That allowed our members to be eligible for per diem and for the county to collect the information they needed to pay that. And then we were officially constituted as a committee, and these are our members. So when we got a new member here, well, I guess technically she'll become a member this month, noticed that a new one was coming in to replace an existing person, then I said you need to notify the county administration, and that will need to be something that's approved. And so, here we are.
We have to approve these, we haven't been doing this.
Can I ask, what is the committee structure on there? Do you have a chair and all those?
We do have a chair. My name's Brian McGraw. I'm the chair right now.
I'm sorry that I haven't officially met you. Nice to meet you.
Since 2018. And then I am, the chair is reappointed or revoted on every 2 years in the same sort of time frame that you guys reconstitute your groups.
And Ryan and I have had a very great working relationship. We've clarified a lot of roles and responsibilities. We've worked very closely together. So this was a great conversation for us to have along with Mike and Mike. And again, just wanting to clarify and wanting to understand intention.
It sounds like it should be an official county committee.
So
Treated as such.
Under something and treated as such, yeah, it really does.
Yep. And I do think, again, I am not advocating at all that we do not have input from the membership. I think the input that the membership provides is invaluable. I think it needs to occur. And we did talk about ensuring, because everything that I was seeing throughout this process, the hiring process, there were updates on every agenda. What we realized were that the updates weren't necessarily happening. And I don't attend every one of those meetings. I was not aware that those updates weren't happening. So when and if we run across that issue again, We just have to make sure that there is somebody there doing those updates in a better fashion. And that's something that Brian and I agreed on, and that's something that we can do, hopefully, though.
Fair enough, yeah.
Hopefully, we don't have to do it anytime soon.
What is the joint ambulance pay on our current structure? Would they be under public safety? Do they report to public safety?
Right now, they just report to this committee because they make operational decisions.
Okay.
And if they need money, anything above a certain amount, they really just need to come here to get approval to spend the money. They don't really have oversight on their operational decisions. Now, I know Mr. Jessen did say that he would like it if they could report through the Public Safety Committee. They felt like that might be a better fit, he and Brian, and I don't necessarily disagree. Emergency management reports that way. And, you know, that is a suggestion that I think we could consider as well.
More to come.
So, thank you for the discussion.
Good
It's
start, Joe.
appreciated.
Good start.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody need a break? Otherwise, if I'm correct, we're going to number 10, Mr. Wendell, yes? What's our musical for numbers?
We're going to what was number 9.
What was number 9?
This is the resolution that's the retirement.
Okay. Now we're going to number 9. Resolution recognizing retirement health use services employee. Trish, is that for you? I assume?
So we have Becky Goldberg retired at the start of this month. She worked for the county for 39 years. I think the last 19 was with us. Previous to that, it was with child support. So we're just asking that this resolution go to the board to honor her.
I would so move.
Second.
Motion by Frank, second by Glassbrenner. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay. Thank you, Trish, for sitting through it.
Yes.
39 years. Very, very good. 10. Ethics Board. Discussion and possible action, confirmation of Ethics Board, number 10. That'd be
It's you,
This is me.
Attorney Wendell.
So this is just a little bit of cleanup. The board may recall that it passed an updated ethics ordinance not too long ago that creates a body known as the Ethics Board. Previously was the Rules and Strategic Planning Committee, which I feel like this body is the spiritual successor of, but there was never a new ethics board declared. And so what I have proposed is declaring this body the ethics board. Ultimately, however, that is a board decision because it relates to the structure of the board.
discussion from our group. Anything? I'm okay with that.
Is there language that do we need to change the committee, because it was prior, previous committee names, does that show up anywhere in the documents we need to change? I'm trying to think what the previous committee was.
No, and it specifically says in the ethics ordinance that there shall be a body known as the ethics board. So what this resolution does is just names this body.
Yeah, it's the ethics board, so you're gonna change, okay, just want to make sure we're, okay.
Any other thoughts, Mr. Manning?
I move.
Mr. Manning moves to approve as presented and changing it, us becoming the ethics board. Is that correct, Mr. Winslow?
Yes.
Second by Mr. Gill. Further discussion, Mr. Carroll.
I'm obviously going to go back and read that ethics resolution, but I'm just wondering how the process is, things coming to that ethics board. How does that get triggered? Who does it? How much are we going to have on our plate?
You are aware of all current matters before the ethics board. This body has already been informed of all matters which may be referred to the ethics board.
And going forward?
Same. They would follow the same process. Some of the matters of which this body has become aware could fall into the realm where it could constitute an ethical violation under this ordinance. Just because it's already before this body does not necessarily mean that this body can act as the ethics board without a formal declaration. This is the body we want doing this stuff. Verified complaint is the general way that somebody initiates action before the ethics board.
Any other discussion? If not, all those, Mr. Turk, anything?
No?
You're good? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. That was 10. We skipped, where are we now?
We should be at, what was 13?
Yes. That's what one of them I don't have crossed out yet. 13, possible action, schedule date for next committee on committees meeting. We do need to set that.
Yes, we have some musical chairs that needs to happen with some of our committees. Someone had a conflict that we have discovered. Another member, the committee was just too much for them, and so they have asked to be removed from a committee, so that actually works very well. So we can just switch a couple of members. Additionally, we need to appoint Supervisor Caro to the Southwest Regional Planning Committee. So all of those things need to be done, but we need to have that discussion in the Committee on Committees. So we need to schedule a meeting.
Mr. Wendell.
I would just also say that we should probably approve the slate of the JAC members.
Oh, and we need to do that since that has not been done properly. So we should do that too.
So any of this need to be done before our next county board meeting? Normally we meet sometime during, after.
Well, next county board meeting is next Tuesday.
Right, was that soon enough?
Like, are you saying meet right before?
Committee on committee.
Oh, just meet right before the next county board meeting? I'm fine with that.
But who is, you have the list of, they know? I don't have it. They'll figure it out.
I've got it on my computer here.
I'm on that committee,
Okay.
that's fine with me.
I'm on it, but I won't be here. Unless there's a
Are
reason
you
you
here
wouldn't
for
have
the
a forum.
spreadsheet of all that? Then yes, Bob
That-
is also on it. Does it work?
Bob's on it?
I'll make
Are you gonna be here,
Mark,
Mark?
aren't you on that one?
Oh.
No, Carrie, Marty, Ken, you, Dave,
Me.
Ingrid.
What?
I'm trying to think of who is
Okay, so
where.
what time then?
We
6?
start normal
No,
time?
6:30? It's short, right?
It shouldn't be that long.
6:40, should we say 6:40? 6:30.
Right, 6:30.
6:30.
I'm not gonna be here. 6:30. All right. You can do whatever
If you
you
show up
want.
then, you've already missed it.
Hope so. We'll be on the way to
So
New
fast.
Orleans. 6:40 will be the committee on committee.
6:30.
All right, 6:30. Right, I'm trying. Squirrel. All right, now where you at, Mr. Wendell? I got 13 is done.
Having a hard enough time.
The airport amendment.
Yes, 14.
Are we skipping 11?
No. 14, so this is discussion and possible action approval of ordinance amendment to remove Iowa County from the Tri-County Airport. Number 14, is there something in here?
There's a lot of stuff in there.
Oh my lord, it's way long. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
This is gonna sound really dumb. I thought we already did this. Like,
They have left, but we haven't officially done it.
oh,
It's the first
They
time.
haven't left yet either.
oh.
So when I was first appointed corporation counsel, a week or two into it, Clint and I had a conversation. We've got this 3-county airport, we want to remove 1 county. It's going to take some FAA approval. How many months do you think this is going to take? And I laughed. I just laughed for a while. And so we're still working on that today. What this is the new operation ordinance for what will remain the Tri-County Airport, because changing the name of an airport apparently requires altering international treaties. I am not certain that I'm kidding, because the little 3-digit things are actually government. So anyway, we and SAWC need to pass identical versions of this ordinance, or as identical as we're going to get, because our initial ordinances were not identical, and then also the names need to be changed. And so that's what this is. It is pretty much the same ordinance that already exists, just takes out Iowa. And changes the percentages for payments due and voting.
Yes. Motion to approve then.
Second.
Motion by Rennish, seconded by Glassbrenner. Further discussion on changing the airport ordinance and adopting the same one that Sauk County is presenting to their people? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, that is taken care of.
Yes.
It'll go to the board. Yeah.
Both boards have to pass.
Yeah, if you want, you have a week to read it.
I'll skip this one.
It is exactly as dry as a federally mandated ordinance sets out. Now we are back to number 7, Mr. Chair.
Back up to number 7, reports by the
What if
administrator.
I forgot everything I needed to say now?
Well, it looks like campus update is one thing.
Okay, so campus update. You'll notice it looks really good out there. They were finally able to get that grass cut. It was finally dry enough. So yesterday, if you looked out there, you had a large tractor with a mower, and then a medium-sized tractor with a mower, and then a normal-sized mower. And they were all in a row mowing together to get it cut down the way that it should be. And they are baling it tomorrow. So, because it was so long, they're gonna just bale it, get it all taken care of, and then try to get over it one more time before the rain comes, because soccer practice is going to be starting soon, and they wanted to make sure that the fields were ready for the kids. They also did get all of the trails back up behind the campus, cleared of all trees, and they got them all mowed, because cross-country practice is starting soon as well, and they wanted to make sure that the kids had all of that ready for them too. So you will see, you know, probably kids running and playing on there and all of that good stuff. So, so that's great. I have reached out to Venture Architects. We are trying to solidify a date for them to come and give their report. So the report is forthcoming. It's just solidifying a date for them to present. So I'm anxiously awaiting that, a response from them on a date. Other than that, I was out at the campus just to do a little walkthrough and check on some things the other day. We were able to, Marilyn Peckham graciously did come and meet us out there so that we could learn how to re-key the fobs that are out there. So she did meet MIS staff, and we were able to boot up the computer that was left there and learn how that worked. So our MIS staff is able to work through rekeying fobs now, which is wonderful. There are still a number of keys floating around out there, we're pretty sure, so the doors do remain chained, some of them for protection, which is not the greatest, but for now it's what we have to do until we make some decisions, because it would be very costly to change all the locks on all of those doors. So that is where we are at with that. So again, you know, until we have more decisions, we can't do much more with that. County treasurer vacancy update. So as of right now, we don't necessarily have a vacancy. Jeffrey did rescind his resignation, not because he is not leaving, but because we have not followed, you know, we haven't made any decisions as of yet. So we do have 2 applicants. We do have a closed session on the agenda for this evening. And so he is willing to stay on. He has been coming in evenings and weekends to do the work that needs to get done and double check what the staff that's currently there is doing, making sure everything, I's are dotted, T's are crossed. And so he will do that as long as it takes until we have someone else in place. We did extend the advertisement as well, but have not had any other interested parties up to this point. So that is where that is at. You will see that a very short press release is going out with more detail to follow. There was a chemical spill earlier in town today. It is under control, it's no longer an active site. They're currently evaluating everything, we don't know much, but DNR was on site. The hazmat team was called in from Vernon County, and so it is under control. Nothing else is occurring at this time. They're just evaluating and taking samples, doing what they need to do. So we do have that going on. The budget is where everybody's budgets are in. It's really now just taking a look at everything and evaluating where we are at. As you all know, we're inching close to that 2027 cliff, and even with the shared revenue, things are tight. So we are looking at the budget and looking at where we need to just take a little harder look. So we'll be working through that. Revenues are down in a lot of areas, which is unfortunate, and of course costs are up. So, but again, we're working through that, and we'll be having second rounds of meetings with some departments and just asking some more questions. So we have met with every single department once already. Just talked through those initial pieces, and then we'll have second meetings and drill down a little bit more. There's always a million things going on, but did have a chat with Precision today. They were in the building. My office has been leaking, Justin and I's office has been leaking pretty badly when you walk into the door, and then right outside the door into the hallway. And we thought that was just because rocks needed to be moved on the roof. Well, that is a piece of the roof that wasn't replaced when the roof was redone. Apparently, there is a huge rip in the roof, a big L-shaped tear. So that's not good. And then all of the units on this side of the building that are, they're basically house units, not industrial sized units. I don't know how many of them there are. They were all put in 1989. Yeah, they're not gonna last much longer. So good news all around on that front. So we'll see what we can do. So.
Questions for the administrator, Richard?
What type of chemical was in the spill?
Don't know yet.
Mr. Carroll?
The roof tear. Now, we just recently did a bunch of roofing and the whole thing was inspected. I don't know where this is with relation to that.
This piece didn't get replaced.
Right, but I thought, Louie and I and Carol were on that committee, and I thought the engineer said, oh, no, because we asked that question.
Yeah,
You're there, let's do it all. Oh,
Yeah.
no, it'll be okay.
No, that there was apparently a piece of it that they didn't do, and of course, that's the piece now that's acting up. So
as a follow-up, what else didn't get done that we might as well do now if we've got to go up there?
Well, again, we have, Venture didn't just look at the campus buildings, remember? They looked at this building. So we're going to have answers, we're going to have data. And I've said this since the day I walked in the store, let's make some data-driven decisions.
Yeah, but we can't let the roof fall in because it's leaking.
No, we can't, but Randy has been able to do quite a bit of repair. So that may be something that he can repair for now to get us through until we know what's what. I mean, if we've got a report coming in the next 2 weeks.
I get that, but if it rains for 2 weeks and it ruins everything else, I mean, we gotta kind of react to stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's the only thing I'd say. It's not that I want to spend more money, but we gotta fix the roof.
No, and Randy is not gonna let it just sit. I think he thought it was literally just moving some rock. He thought it was one of those scenarios where something had come a little loose, because apparently that's been known to happen up there. And I think something entirely different. And I didn't get a chance to talk to Randy. This was later this afternoon. So I will circle back with him right away tomorrow morning and find out what we can do in the meantime, for sure. Yeah, no, we don't want the roof falling in. We don't want more damage, that's for sure.
I mean, it's
We need a budget for blue card.
Blue tarp? Okay,
2.
I'll get on that.
Any other questions for the administrator?
I have one, if I may, sir.
Sure.
The hay that they're gonna bale up out there, where is that going?
Your house?
Probably gonna go out to the highway shop and they'll use it for along roadsides, would be my guess.
I have donkeys to feed.
Yeah, I have no idea what they're, none.
It may not even keep. If it's grass, depends on what they mowed it with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how dry it was when they baled it.
No clue.
All right. Anything else? Where are we at now?
Now we are back to 6.
Open record. Oh, yeah, I did remember that. Hey, introduce yourself, Jason. Hey, somebody, I forgot.
I have a degree in math and I'm confused. Good evening, County Board members. Some of you I know, some of you I don't. My name is Brendan Federley and I have the privilege of being the last dean of campus. And the reason why I'm here is to ask you as a taxpayer. There is a lot of equipment of value that needs to be disposed of in one way or another. And I do have a vested interest. I am not here to lobby. I am here to say to the folks of the county, I would like you to think of what's in the best interest of the taxpayers. And how can whatever is there best serve the citizens of this county, whatever fate it may be. That being said, if any of the county board members, the attorney or the administrator want to ask someone who's been there for 18 years and was in charge of every nickel and dime that passed through there, any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have your contact information, or?
I
You know where I live.
I do know where you live. I'm just making sure everybody else knows how to get a hold of you too.
No, I do have it. I've been holding on to it for when we maybe know something.
Two.
Yeah, I think the local resources like this are going to be huge, huge help for all of us. Some of the stuff we're not going to know how to deal with or how to dispose of possibly.
Right.
Yes.
Definitely.
Now we are to 16.
And
All right.
what'd you find?
You'll be good.
That's
how the process is. You know that.
All right. Let's take a quick recess. Take a restroom break or drink of water, and then we're going to go into closed session, which will be only for committee members. Committee members only. Closed session. Right back.
Is that what you're saying?
Back in
It is
closed
in the
session.
food category.
I'm going to unmute, is that okay?
Yeah, you good there?
So what time do we reconvene in open session at 7:39 PM?
Yeah. I'll give you the information on who made the motions when we get done.
Okay, I think we're back on, video's on.
We're back on, all right. No action on items in closed session, is that correct?
That is correct.
Correct. Appointments. Or did we do that?
We're going back up to 11.
11. Okay. Oh, yeah, 11. Discussion of possible action, provision of corporation council services for contracted staff or county employees. Number 11. That's Administrator
I haven't
Pettis.
given you enough handouts today. You want 3 or 4?
That one's good.
All right. This should answer all your questions, Mr. All right, so we've discussed in-house corporation counsel, not in-house corporation counsel, what it would look like. So here are the numbers. The upper numbers are, this is all the data from 2021 to 2023, and then our year-to-date costs. And then to the right of that is how many hours that amount of money have gotten us this year. So for $44,000, that has gotten us 356.93 hours. And for $13,000 with attorney forehand, that's 247.56 hours, for a grand total of $57,701 year to date. So, we're halfway through the year. So at that assumption, it's $115,403.90 for the total year. And that is 1,200 hours that we would have in service. At that rate, if you break that down, that would be $95.46 per hour of service that we obtain. If you look at in-house corporation counsel, that is having an in-house attorney at the rate of $95,680 annual wage, and that is the suggested wage from Tessa Melvin. And that's just a starting point. That's, that can be discussed, but that's at least something as a jumping off point. Your applicable taxes, your WRS comes out to $109,601.44. We always build in the highest possible insurance rate, which is $26,000. So that would come out to a total compensation rate of $135,601.44. We currently contract attorney forehand for 416 hours annually at the rate of $52.86. So we know what her annual wage is then with those others built in. So the total number of hours we would then attain is 2,496 hours. So you add those totals up together, that's 160,790.72. Divide those out by 24.96, and you're going to have $64.42 per hour. So you're getting, more than double the hours of service for less money, essentially.
Does DHS have any attorney costs that this would be absorbed into?
Yep,
also?
so they have some limited ways that they can get the funding, but they're looking into more. They know that they have some funds that can be used to offset salaries for some of their workers, and then they could reroute some of those funds to take care of contracted services for Michael, or I guess whoever's in the position, not Mike, right now it's Michael.
Well, no, they actually currently for TPR functions, they are able to recoup some percentage of.
Back into
You have to ask her.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Yep, and then also child support, it's 66% of whatever time is spent on any child support function is reimbursable. And so right now, that is not something we use corporation counsel for, but should we make this switch, then we would utilize corporation counsel to assist child support.
So the $135,601.45 total compensation is not offsetting, that's actual compensation. We still have to go, there may be some state compensation that's going to reduce that. There may be some things that will actually bring that number down from
They're just not.
tax levy.
But they're not guaranteed.
They're not
Exactly. I
guaranteed.
understand that.
And I didn't want to misrepresent anything.
No, we need to start off.
And did you already ask about filling those hours discrepancy then? Because right now you're saying we're gonna have 1,200 hours for, and if we hire in-house, we're looking at 2,400 hours.
Well, 1,200 is for half the year.
No, it says estimated 2024.
That's where I.
So that's what I'm
where my
asking, if you're doubling the hours, are you
Do
gonna
we have
bill
that
that?
much work?
Oh, there's plenty of work.
Well, I mean,
Well, we're not
it's a
doing it
valid
now.
question, because.
We're not
you're
doing it now because of the cost.
Well, I get that, but you're saying, okay, well, we're gonna save, we're gonna go down from $95 an hour to $64 an hour. Yes, but we're doubling the hours, so are we sure that we're going to actually be able to utilize those hours? Because then it's not a cost savings if we're not, if that,
No, I get what you're saying.
Who's doing child support right now? How's that getting up?
Attorney forehand.
So she's doing all the child support. And then
Well, we have 2 staff in child support, and then she's there for additional guidance and then for hearings and things and support.
But Yeah, so are we, is that part of the hours then? Because that's, some of that's covered by 60.
Correct.
But I mean, I guess bottom line then, are you saying that we are missing out on about 1,200 hours of work that should be being done for the county that will somehow benefit us? I mean, because that's a lot of hours.
If you ask Trish, if you speak with Trish.
1,200 hours.
She will tell you that there are several trainings that they're not doing. There is a lot of time that they would be using corp counsel that they don't because they don't want the $125 an hour cost. When I asked about how much time that they think that they could benefit from having corporation counsel, didn't she say 40%?
Yes.
40% what?
Of his time.
But I understand the question on the hours, but the point is, it's still cheaper.
But it's not cheaper if those are just hours we're filling.
I get what they're saying. If you just
Fluff.
feel like you need a 40 or a part-time corporation counsel.
I see.
Right. But if you look at the volume of work that we have had, I don't see that going down. I don't see the volume of attorney, I mean, and if you wanted to stay contracted, we certainly can, but our contract is up, and I will tell you that Michael has already confirmed that our rate will go up.
We don't know what that is at this point.
175 an hour.
125 now, it will be 175.
So I didn't know that number when I did these calculations, and so that will impact that as well. So when you're thinking bang for your buck, you know, what makes the most sense? And that's where, and again, it's not my call, it's your call. This is what I can present to you.
If it would be helpful, I did throughout the day just kind of jot down some of the projects I've worked on, am working on, or need to work on in the near future. Because I can say I do lawyer stuff for you, and it helps maybe sometimes to have an idea if that would be helpful. I can go through that. So for the treasurer, I do a lot of the tax deed process. So when a tax delinquent property comes up, I have to draft the affidavit of due diligence, ensure that the proper notice requirements have been met, there's publication, and then I actually draft the deed. Currently, my paralegal does it, but the court counsel would need to draft that deed for submission to the clerk for signature. And then there's a tax deed property that an occupant still is in, that needs to be an eviction case that gets filed and prosecuted. I simply have not had the time to do that. For HHS, kind of touched on, there's some termination of parental rights cases. There's an appeal. So to the point of, are there enough hours? I think in the last week, I spent 20-something hours on that appeal. Yesterday, I was putting together a table of contents and appendix and putting page numbers in, something I hoped would take me about 15 minutes. It took 3 hours, not out of incompetence, just, it's.
I don't know,
Appellate filings are very, very stringent. I had to convert an entire PDF into image files and then reconvert it back. And it's only because I've been using computers since I was 6 that I knew how to do all of that. And then just the various crisis situations that come up. So we had someone who was, we know to be mentally ill, who got himself arrested, and we were told by the jail, he's going out on the street as soon as we file the paperwork. And we're like, cool, he'll be right back. Maybe give us a minute to try and figure out where we can get in place. But those are the sorts of things. They are emergency, can't reach Amy necessarily, and so those come to me. For the sheriff, there's the ongoing revision of Ordinance 89.7, whether or not we're going to continue to pursue that. There's also a number of issues with the tower project. I've needed to take a more active role in negotiation with some of our, I hesitate to call them partners here, but with some of the other parties involved there. For the highway, there's a couple of ordinances Josh and I just drafted. I can't sing Josh's praises enough. He's actually saved you a bunch of money because he knows what he's doing. And generally when he comes to me, it's with, this is what I'm thinking of doing, and is is that okay? For the clerk, I review open records requests, and then there are just various little issues that come up that are not necessarily, they don't require a lot of time. Sometimes it's just pulling up the statute, reading it, just making sure the interpretation, but they're frequent. And then working with media code on codification issues. Admin, I mean, I was in Candace's office for 4 hours, I think, today, between some personnel stuff that's going on and preparation for this meeting, reviewing of policies and things like that, and then the ongoing issues with the transition for the campus. Zoning and land conservation, there may be, we've received allegations that there is an illegal mine operating. So I'm going to have to, you know, get my head around our non-metallic mining code and then there's, you know, trailers parked places and just zoning citations that need to be issued. For Pine Valley, it's actually been somewhat quiet there, but you all know the investment that went on in there earlier. The clerk of courts needed me to review the U.S. bankruptcy code because there were certain people who were alleging that the fees that they owed the court for normal court services were dischargeable in bankruptcy, and I needed to provide the clerk with the authority that they could cite to disabuse them of that notion. There's the work that I do for the board, so not just attending the meetings, but sometimes there's issues that need to be researched further. Sometimes there's ordinances that I need to draft or revise. Simons, occasionally I would get calls, hey, this member did this, is it appropriate to suspend them, terminate their membership? And then we just had the issue that we discussed, that there's a grant governing certain of the area, and so we need to figure out what the obligations of and that's going to be another negotiation with the system because they're the other party involved in that, and they've already kind of made noise that they don't want to assume that obligation despite them being the ones who signed the document. So that'll be a whole thing. And then the ambulance service, Director Mike is new. He has a lot of good ideas, and they're about changing policy. So just being there as a support for him. There's been a couple personnel things that have come up that have needed to be addressed, and just making sure that he's comfortable and competent in exercising what is properly his authority, and then also knowing what needs to be elevated. And then the REC building, the former REC building, there was the air conditioning compression unit or something like that, and that I need to get involved with on that. And those are the things that I could come up with off the top of my head like 10 minutes earlier today.
You mentioned ongoing with the campus. Are we still pursuing them for a settlement, or is that all done, or where are we?
Efforts are ongoing. I would say that would be a consultation with legal counsel or closed session item if you want more thorough.
That would use up a lot of hours.
Well, and that's not even policies that need to be revised and rewritten and adjusted, and all of the number of other things that I have on my whiteboard, so.
So what are we looking for here? Send it to county board? What's the thoughts here? What are you?
Recommendation and guidance, that's what this has always been about. Which way are you leaning? You want more time, you want more information? Not quite sure yet?
I think I'm going to make it, again, I'm not comfortable hiring another person when we don't have our current employees where they're covered, where they need to be covered, where they should be at. Let's see that way. I'm just not comfortable right now. I'm not saying it isn't something we could do, and I'm not saying I can't support it, but I can't support it right now because I need more. I need to see what that wage study and all that stuff compiles, because we talked about it before. The next couple of years, it's not going to be any easier, right? And we got to take care of that. So that's where I'm at. Just struggle hiring more people when we aren't 100% where we're at.
What if they add in the information or calculations that include the rate, wage increase?
Well,
I mean, that
I mean,
makes
we know that it's gonna be $175
Right,
an
but
hour.
to see the actual numbers of, okay, so if we just stick with this number of hours where we might not be able to give attention to these things, and now we're paying this amount versus paying, I think it's a valid thing to look at again.
And I get that 100%. The other thing is remember, the tower project should be getting done. This should be getting done. This should, you know what I mean? There could be a change, a drastic change. Mike's been very busy the last 2 years, but it may not always be that busy, right? I mean, you gotta look at the years prior to that where it wasn't that busy too.
We haven't even started addressing all the campus things.
Well, I agree, but my point is I'm just not comfortable. I mean, you guys, it's, everybody's can vote, we can vote on it. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna vote no. But I might not in 3 months.
Right.
That's where I'm.
Mr. Carroll.
If we were to just stay with the current situation, do you have more capacity to do more?
No.
Or are you, that's what I was getting at, you're already doing Richland Center.
Yeah, I am down to precisely one private client who should take me half hour, 45 minutes on a good day, and it's been 2-3 weeks now. I was on vacation for one, but then, you know, if you're paying attention to local politics, I've told the city of Richland Center we need to start over with our entire code of ordinances, and then we also represent Soldier Grove, Lafarge, Viola, Boca, and so no, I am not.
So you're still city council too?
I'm still city council.
Would you be if we hired you?
That was what we talked about before here, is that he would be, no, he wouldn't be doing that. But, yeah.
I'd like to see what we're gonna do with Amy too before I would have to go do this. I mean, we obviously gotta do something about Amy.
Not what we talked about here, Gary. Sorry. Yeah, no, I think the consensus is, I agree with Mr. Cooley, that once the wage study, that's coming out.
Don't know yet.
Don't know yet, okay.
What I can tell you is that I had a conversation with Tessa, and the preliminary data is in, and it's not as bad as we thought, which is a good thing, which is a very good thing.
So the other thing we have to do, probably put on, I know that's one of the other items, agenda items coming up, but his contract is up.
Yeah.
So that it will get advertised again.
July 22nd.
So that's, anyway, anything else on this? I mean, I agree with Mr. Cooley, myself. I mean, we can send it to full county board if you guys want to vote on it out of here. But we'd have to take the motion.
So when does the new wage go into effect?
New contract.
Now we're doing it at 175, is that what?
So it doesn't come up very often, but I need to talk to my boss about that. Because she would be.
Well, I mean, that changes the bottom line numbers here.
Right.
You know, and I think that, I'm a bottom line guy.
Well,
I'm looking at
my opinion, because do we have it in the contract that we can renew it, or do we have to advertise again for his position?
You can renew the contract.
Renew it, and you have the right to up hourly rate.
We would, yes.
Okay.
If you elected to put out like an RFP, I think John Flaherty or something responded to Vernon County when they put out an RFP for legal services. We retained that contract, but certainly worth looking into. And then I also, with just, if we renew the contract, I think we'd have to have a discussion as to the terminability of said contract. If you do elect to move forward and bring in in-house counsel, we don't want to.
Right.
So our philosophy is we're in it for the long run. We're not in it for the quick buck. And so we're not out to screw anybody or this is a reasonable raise based on market values. But we're also not trying to jam you up and say, well, you try and drop us and we're going to sue you. So certainly that would be something that we could insert in the updated contract, but if we are running out of time, or eventually we are going to have that conversation, right, if the contract is expired.
Update the contract with some language to let us out of the contract if need be.
I guess I'd like to see the budget that's gonna come out for next year, 2025. See where those numbers are, see how we're looking before I would want to make that decision, knowing what the new number is gonna be of 175. But what's the county budget look like? How is that gonna be affected by this, or is it? I think that would be something I'd want to see before I make a decision. I like the idea. I agree that there is a concern. We have to make sure we cover our existing staff, but in this day and age, I would lean towards that at this point. I just want to see the numbers that we can afford if we're going to have to look. That's my 2 cents.
Good, good. I think for now, no action needed.
Okay.
And yeah, I agree with Bob as well. Look at the budget, work in the new contracted numbers. We can have this chart again, especially come towards the end of the year, because we know
Okay,
it.
cool. Yeah, I want to see where we're at in the year.
Yeah, it's gonna
Closer to the year.
increase.
Michael, do you have a preference for the
I would be bad at my job if I accepted an offer or ventured an opinion on something that doesn't exist yet. So I am perfectly content in my current role. Certainly I keep busy, but I would also be foolish to not look at other offers should they be presented.
So we are.
Well spoken by answer.
What did he say?
Good answer.
Exactly. Very good then.
Correspondence. Any?
I'm aware of.
Okay. Future agenda items?
Short and easy.
Renewal that swing contract.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, the contract, and I think that there'll probably be more. We're getting almost as long as the county board.
Some days.
The subcommittee.
Can I have start earlier?
All right, Mr. Manning.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Mr. Frank. And all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you, everyone. Very good discussion.
Take one away.